5 times in one surah, Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying the Qur'an is easy, the Qur'an is easy, the Qur'an is easy. Why don't we find it easy? You can only earn a pure heart from the one who owns the heart, and that is Allah Azza wa Jalla. You know that our attitude with social media, that's how it would be with the Qur'an. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. When we speak about engaging in this exercise of Tadabbur al-Qur'an, the first and foremost thing is to clean the heart, to purify the heart, and to understand what you want to achieve in this journey, in this sacred worship of At-Tadabbur. At the end of the day, Tadabbur al-Qur'an is a worship that Allah Azza wa Jalla is pleased with, and He grants you reward and you earn His pleasure the more you involve yourself in this activity. So the first matter is a clean heart. Must purify the heart. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. Only the pure ones can touch the Qur'an. Of course, there is khilaf concerning what this ayah is actually referring to. Some said that this is the proof for why you're not allowed to touch the Qur'an if you're not upon a state of purity, wudu. And some said this is a reference to the angels, that they are the pure ones that touch the Al-Qur'an which is in Al-Lawh al-Mahfuz. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he says, if you cannot touch it except with wudu, then that means its meanings will not touch except a pure heart. It won't touch except a heart which has been purified. Purified from a shirk, purified from sins, and purified from innovations and all the evil qualities of the heart. So that's the first thing. We need to ensure that the heart is clean. Uthman radiallahu anhu, he said, لو طهرت قلوبنا لما شبعنا من كلام ربنا. If our hearts were pure, it would never be satisfied from the word of Allah Azza wa Jal. It'll just be hungry. It'll want more and more and more, which kind of explains the boredom that people may experience today with the Qur'an and its recitation and its tadabbur and memorization. Oftentimes you may find people 5 minutes spends with the Qur'an and just gets bored or lazy or sleepy afterwards. The issue is the heart. It's not time, because we all have time. Look, monitor your time from the morning to the night. What are you doing? How much time you had that was actually free? How much time did you actually waste? How much time did you spend on useless scrolling and what do they call it? Careless scrolling.
Doom scrolling. They call it doom scrolling.
Doom scrolling. It's a disease. Doom scrolling. How many hours? If you put all those together, it's probably 4 or 5 hours. And your phone will do a good job to expose you to the second of how much you've spent on this. So usually a lot of people are just wasting their time. They're doing nothing productive in their time. So it's not that I didn't have time with the Qur'an. It's a problem of the heart. Because Uthman said if the heart was pure, it would not get enough. And wallah, it wants to spend an hour. It won't get enough. It's like, you know, our attitude with social media, that's how it would be with the Qur'an. That attitude of, I can't wait to get my phone, it's just become a habit. We're just flicking. We don't even know what we're doing. We don't even know what we're watching. I watched the video once. It said, you're up to this reel. I challenge you to remember what was 2 reels before that. It's true. I don't know what was 2 reels before that. So you see the problem? This is a problem. So the idea is we have time, but the hearts are not pure. The hearts are not clean. So you can't start your journey of a tadabbur without a clean, pure heart. So the very first thing you need to focus on is a pure heart. And you can only earn a pure heart from the one who owns the heart, and that is Allah Azza wa Jal, by asking Him. If my iPhone became faulty, no one's going to repair it in the same way Apple is going to repair it. I'll go to them, I'll say my phone that I purchased from you is faulty, fix it for me. And they'll fix it. They'll bring it to me brand new. This heart was created by Allah Azza wa Jal, and it's faulty. It's dirty, it's black, it's messed up, it's broken because of what we do in the day, in the night, because of what has happened to us, or whatever the case may be. Take the heart back to its creator and ask Him to reform the heart, to rectify it, to clean it, to polish it for you, then you're going to find that the Qur'an is going to be so easy and so simple, like Allah promised 5 times in Surah Al-Qamar. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Allah promised and said, indeed, certainly, no doubt about it, we made this Qur'an easy. لِلذِّكْر. Al-ulama rahimahum Allah here, and this is an example of tafsir, Ibn Abbas and others said, يعني للذكر, we made it easy to read, to memorize, to ponder, to implement. Everything about the Qur'an should be easy. And this ayah didn't come once. 5 times in one surah, Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying the Qur'an is easy, the Qur'an is easy, the Qur'an is easy. So why isn't it easy? Why don't we find it easy? There's a problem in the heart. You need to address this first before speaking about any step. No step will work if this is not paid attention to. So we need to pay attention to the heart. And there are many things in the day and in the night we do that enables a pure heart. As-salat, the obligation. That's above the list for a pure heart. Some people want to give their time to the Qur'an, focus, pay attention. When the obligation, he doesn't have that passion. It doesn't make sense. When we want to hold ourselves to account, they say self-accountability. Where do we start? We start with the obligations. Hold yourself accountable with the obligations first. As-salat is the main reason to earn a pure heart.
And perhaps some scholars say even that the salat is actually one of the keys to Tadabbur al-Qur'an. So you have we talked about the spiritual obstacle that you need to, prerequisite to help with Tadabbur. And then fixing your salah situation. Many of us don't realize that we may be barred from the reflecting on the Qur'an. A spiritual seal may be placed on our heart where the Qur'an is not able to penetrate. We read it, it means nothing, it affects us in no way, we feel nothing. And the reason is not intellectual. It's not that you're lacking a book or a translation or some knowledge. You're not lacking knowledge. There's a spiritual blocker, which is if we neglect our salah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cover the Qur'an from us. فَخَلَافَ مِن بَعْدِهِمْ خَلْفٌ أَضَاعُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَاتَّبَعُوا الشَّهَوَاتِ فَسَوْفَ يَلْقَوْنَ غَيًّا. There's a generation, Allah says they neglected their salah and they followed their desires, so I'm going to make them lost as a consequence. So the consequence of ignoring your salah is that. And the consequence of connecting with your salah and giving it its due commitment is that Allah opens in salah, especially, meanings of the Qur'an that you never realized before.
No, subhanallah.
These are the futuhat of the salah itself. And that's why many scholars, they tell you that one of the ways to tadabbur is to recite your revision in salah and think about it in salah. And that's also why perhaps in Taraweeh, many of us, reflections come to us that wouldn't come outside of Taraweeh because there's something special about the salah itself. So now these are the spiritual prerequisites of tadabbur. Now somebody says, okay, right now I've got a surah in front of me or an ayah. You said alif lam mim. But how do I practically, what do I do now? How do I do tadabbur?
Shaykh Hisham, before we move on to alif lam mim, just a short point here. Allah Azza wa Jalla in Surah Al-A'raf, He said, سأصرف عن آياتي الذين يتكبرون في الأرض بغير الحق. I'm going to turn my ayat away from those who act arrogantly on earth. Arrogance is a disease of the heart. So that means the diseases of the heart, if they're not looked after and you don't purify your heart from them, they are a main cause and a reason for why the ayat will be kept away from you. سأصرف عن آياتي. So we need to clean the heart, You need to clean the heart. And as we said, and as you mentioned, as-salat is one of these the primary cleanser of the heart is as-salat. As found in many ahadith and many ayat in the Qur'an that prove the salat is what cleans the heart. Al-wudu as well, that's why it's recommended to make wudu before as-salat. Al-isti'adha before reading the Qur'an. Al-wudu before reading the Qur'an. So that you can have a pure heart, so that now you're able to reflect over the ayat. Al-isti'adha, al-basmala, all these matters play a very important role to keep the heart pure so that you remain focused and in that mode of reflecting all the way as you sit with this Qur'an, pondering over its ayat. When we come to the second step after purification of the heart, we want to know that Tadabbur al-Qur'an and Tadabbur al-ayah, basically has three levels. Three levels. The levels that we refer to as the think, feel, and do. Think, feel, and do. Every ayah in the Qur'an addresses our thinking. So every ayah teaches us something new, or it corrects something that we have wrong in our minds. You know, sometimes people thought something about Allah, but the reality wasn't that. The ayah comes and corrects your understanding about Allah. It corrects your understanding about the afterlife. It corrects your understanding about life's calamities. It corrects your understanding about when you have so many calamities, could this be a sign that Allah hates me, loves me? The ayat of the Qur'an come and correct all these things that we may have learned when we were young, growing up. That's what an aspect of the ayah does. Another aspect of an ayah is that it addresses the emotions. It talks to us. It talks to our emotions. You know, and there are a lot of psychologists that have written many books in hope that they address our emotions and teach us how we're supposed to, what emotion we're supposed to have at this moment and in this moment. And why do I need all this? أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ? Doesn't Allah know who He created? And He's the one who knows all our emotions. He's the one who created them. So every ayah is addressing an emotion. Every ayah is telling you whether you're supposed to increase love for Allah, whether you're supposed to increase your hope in Allah, whether you're supposed to increase in your fear of Allah. Every emotion, the ayah is addressing. And the final part to every ayah, when reflecting and pondering, it's addressing the behavior. It's telling us what to do. Either words we're supposed to say on our tongue, or physical actions that we're supposed to be doing with our bodies. So, and this is not a new concept. This, in fact, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions this many times in the Qur'an. For example, Allah Azza wa Jal continuously repeats in the Qur'an saying, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ آمَنُوا. The believers are people that آمَنوا, believe. Now, Iman is in the heart, right? And you cannot believe without having the knowledge. You need to have the knowledge. First it goes into your mind, the knowledge, and then you believe. Your heart, زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا. The Iman increases. That's the emotion, that's the heart, it increases. And then, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. After you've got the correct knowledge, and your heart has embraced this knowledge with certainty and with full conviction, and your Iman and certainty in Allah has risen and has increased, now you move on to al-amal. You start doing. And that's every ayah in the Qur'an. That's what it's doing.
Something just came to my mind, subhanAllah. Yes. 2 examples in the Qur'an, practical examples, where Allah is sending revelation and is targeting a specific person and is think, feel, do. For example, وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّ مُوسَىٰ أَنْ أَرْضِعِيهِ فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي إِنَّا رَادُّوهُ إِلَيْكِ وَجَاعِلُوهُ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. I revealed to the mother of Moses, action, I want you to suckle the child. When you fear, if you fear, throw him in the river, but I want you to feel no fear, and I want you to feel no sadness.
SubhanAllah.
Throw him in the river, do, it's an action. Feel, I don't want you to feel any fear, nor any sadness. And then what I want you to think, I want you to think that I promise you I'll return him to you. Focus on that. No. So it's actually reverse, do, feel, think, but it's the same.
But you know why?
Pyramid.
You know, so the ayah would be mentioning that فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي. Because Allah Azza wa Jal expects that we obey His command regardless of how we feel.
That's beautiful.
But then the emotion is not neglected and ignored. So Allah addresses it as well. SubhanAllah. That's exactly what He said to Musa. When He said to him, خُذْهَا وَلَا تَخَفْ سَنُعِيدُهَا سِيرَتَهَا الْأُولَى.
Regarding the staff, take it.
That's the action. Didn't address the emotion first.
Don't worry.
Because Allah expects obedience first. No.
Beautiful. And then سَنُعِيدُهَا سِيرَتَهَا الْأُولَى. I'll return it again. I want you to think that I'm promising you that things will be fine.
Aywa.
But so you need to constantly be thinking in this way. The other example that I'm thinking of is the example of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. His daughter is being slandered and a rumor is being spread that she's done something illicit and inappropriate with another man. And one of the prime perpetrators who's spreading the rumor is one of his relatives. Mistah ibn Uthatha. And he's funding his living expenses. And then he says, you know what, I'm not going to fund this guy anymore. No, thank you, I'm done. And then Allah reveals Qur'an. وَلَا يَأْتَلِ أُولُو الْفَضْلِ مِنْكُمْ وَالسَّعَةِ أَنْ يُؤْتُوا أُولِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ وَالْمُهَاجِرِينَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَنْ يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. O Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu, people of virtue like you and wealth, you should not stop doing good deeds just because other people have wronged you. So the action first, do. Then he says, and forgive and forget. Don't you want Allah to forgive you? So you got to feel something that when I'm doing this, Allah asked me to do this, I'm going to have to continue looking after this man. But while I'm doing it, I'm thinking, I want Allah to forgive me as well. There's a feeling, there's an emotional aspect that he's addressing. So, and this changes life. I mean, there's a real consequence of tadabbur here. He has to actually go and pay somebody's rent. The Qur'an is not a book that's just a nice thing to listen to in the car. It has to make you uncomfortable and deal with some of your difficult traits, some of your anger, your upsetness, your relatives. And if that's not happening, then there's a disconnect with the Qur'an. So these are two examples that came to my mind. With think, feel, do, or rather do, feel, think.
No, subhanallah. And I mean, it's incredible. Even when we look at these three things, the think and feel should lead to the bigger type of tadabbur, which is the do. So out of all these three matters, the greatest and the biggest type of tadabbur is the do. And that's why Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, when he defined the tadabbur, he said, وَمَا تَدَبُّرُ آيَاتِهِ إِلَّا بِاتِّبَاعِهِ. He said the greatest form of tadabbur, وَمَا تَدَبُّرُ, and he's just telling you tadabbur is nothing but following the ayat, following in the guidance of the ayat, to do what the ayah is telling you. So the idea, Shaykh Hisham, is this. If I read an ayah, and by the way, the doing includes the doing of the heart, the actions of the heart, and the doing of the limbs. So if I read an ayah in where Allah Azza wa Jalla is encouraging the believers to give a sadaqah, and I got up and I gave a sadaqah, that is tadabbur. That's tadabbur in its highest levels.
That's beautiful because, some of us, we blame earlier generations, grandparents, great-grandparents who were farmers, simple people. We say these guys, they didn't do tadabbur Quran because maybe many of them were illiterate. For generations, right? The vast majority of people were illiterate before schooling, But actually, no, many of them were doing tadabbur practically. They were giving sadaqah. They were helping their parents. It wasn't theoretical activity for them. They were doing practical tadabbur, even if they weren't able to tell you the meaning of a particular tadabbur. They were doing practical tadabbur. Beautiful. And this is the crux. This is what it comes down to. Ultimately, you understand the meaning, great. You feel something, brilliant. But if you don't act on it,
you've missed the point of tadabbur. When you read an ayah that explains about the punishment of Allah and the hellfire, and as a result, your fear of Allah increased, and it led you to do something that protects you from the punishment of Allah, that's tadabbur. Until now you are doing tadabbur of the ayah.
Actually, this reminds me of something you said on a phone call once, Sheikh.
Subhanallah.
Okay. I still remember it, is that when people say acting on the Qur'an, people interpret it, they think it's physical actions. But acting on the Qur'an could be amal qalbi, could be a spiritual action. For example, I read an ayah, وَمَا لَنَا أَلَّا نَتَوَكَّلَ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَقَدْ هَدَانَا سُبُلَنَا. Okay? And now, the only thing that's changed, practically, physically, I'm not doing anything different, but the only one thing that's changed is I'm trusting Allah deeply. That's a spiritual amal.
No.
People don't realize this is amal. It's an action. It's not a thought.
No.
Even though it's technically a feeling or thought, but it's an action. It's classed as an action, right?
No.
There's something once you said to me, and I thought this is actually quite a unique point.
أعمال القلوب.
أعمال القلوب.
That's why mention that العمل هو بدني وقلبي.
There's two types of actions.
And both of them must be put to work. Both of them need to be put into action. So yes, you may read an ayah, for example, وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ وَمَا تُوعَدُونَ. Allah Azza wa Jalla is taking an oath and He's saying, by Allah, your provision is in the heavens and everything you have been promised. It's all written in the heavens. Not that your actual provision is in the heaven, but it's written there, it's documented, it's decreed there, and it's going to happen here on earth. Your provision is going to come to you. So you read this ayah and your tawakkul should increase. Now, if your tawakkul increased and you came out of your house, not concerned, not worried about your rizq, just concerned with what you're supposed to be doing, now you have done tadabbur of the ayah, amal qalbi.
Something interesting that came to my mind is that the Ayat Al Ahkam, the verses or the ayat, the signs of Allah that pertain to practical rulings, marriage, divorce, finance, law. Some scholars say it's about 400 odd ayat of the Quran, 400, 800. So the rest of the Quran, the other thousands of ayat, the actions that we take from them are actually not ruling based. The vast majority of the Quran are not practical laws. They are actually spiritual actions of belief, disbelief, gratitude.
Strengthening the heart.
It's strengthening the heart. And perhaps this is something that many people might wonder, like, how do I actually act on this? But it's a very organic. When you read that ayah, وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ, you can't help, if you understand it, if you deeped it, as they say, you can't help but increase in trust in Allah.
Definitely.
And you have acted on the Quran.
Definitely.
You didn't move, you just sat there.
Subhanallah.
But you have acted on the Quran.
نعم أيوة هذا هو التدبر. That's what التدبر is.